Welcome back to Build Boldly Podcast. I'm your host, Pat Rodgers, and today we have very, very, very special guests. We have 4 of our district managers here. So we have Jay up in Dublin, Akeem in Lewis Center, we have Neil in Toledo, and Avery in Greenwood. So we're going to put these guys on the spot and have them dive in on some of the key things that a tenant should know, tenants ask on tours, and what you can ultimately expect when you're coming on site, and how to find the right type of space that you're looking for, and ultimately how to decide on where your business is going and why they're going to go there to help growth. So we'll kick things off with some easy softballs here. Jay, I'll start with you. What are some of the common questions you get from prospective tenants?
One common question is they're concerned about the shipping and receiving, making sure that, they can receive their products even if they're not on site, or making sure that, big semi trucks can get to the location, their location. That's one that I see quite a bit.
Awesome. Yeah, we definitely hear a lot of that, right? Depending on your location, access, and whether or not you can receive deliveries, whether a truck can actually come through there. All of those can be key challenges if you're trying to run really any type of business, but a lot of e-commerce, a lot of distribution will have those issues. Akeem, what else are you hearing, from tenants in terms of what they're looking for?
I get a lot of people asking like how they can get their business connected to Google, if that's a possibility, getting visibility for their business, SEO, stuff like that. So just really bringing themselves onto a platform on Google is a big one.
Absolutely. That kind of business address, business presence. If I'm going to make the leap to be a real business with business space, can I be found is really that kind of outcome. And I think that's definitely something that a lot of tenants are looking at. We focus a lot on that at Rise. And so we can also help them to ultimately achieve that. So that's a great point. Any others on your front, Neil?
One thing that I get commonly asked, and especially with the new into the business of looking for warehouse space, is their access. So will they have 24/7 access? They may be doing this as a second thing versus having their real job and then doing this business. Will they be able to access the space at 10 o'clock at night or on a Sunday or something like that? That's a big question that I get a lot, is about how much access are they going to have within this facility?
Depending on where they're coming from, they may not have had 24/7. If you've got the self-storage, you got locked hours, can't do certain things in the unit. So I'm sure that comes up a lot with that transition of, I'm growing out of space. Can this help me to actually achieve that? Avery, anything else you'd add on that point?
Yeah, I see a lot of people asking about flexibility on the lease term.
Mm-hmm.
They're starting out, they're a little, most of them are coming from working out of their garage or somewhere smaller, maybe a self-storage. They're looking, comparing us to month. So they're looking at different options there. They don't want to commit to the 3 to 5 years. So they're asking about, flexibility on the lease term, and then scalability. What sizes do we have that they can grow into? They don't want to be locked into something small. They think they're going to grow quickly. Can we accommodate that? There's a couple questions.
That's interesting, because I think, how often, like across the board for you guys, somebody moves in and they assume they need X amount of space, and whether that's the business growing or just not knowing what they need, how often are folks then, upgrading into that next size or adding on a unit? How frequently is that happening for you guys?
Quite common. Yeah, I've had them actually sign up on their first space, and weeks later needing the next size up.
Yeah.
So we see it quite a bit.
No, and I think that's so common. We're starting businesses, we're hoping for that success story to happen, and then all of a sudden it's like, what do I do if I can't get that extra space? Can I take on that next contract? Can I take on the opportunity ahead of me? So it's always interesting, but I think that's a great one. What is that flexibility? What are my terms? What happens if I need to move? How could I get out of this lease, or how could I expand? And if they're not asking those questions, they may be stuck, and that's going to hinder the business growth. So that's really, really important. When they're getting into space, you're doing a tour, you're looking at the units. What are some of the considerations that they're thinking about, or maybe that they should be thinking about when trying to find the right size of unit or the right space for them? I'll open the floor if anyone has thoughts on that.
I hear the ceiling height a lot of times is a big determining factor. So we've got different size ceiling heights in our units, and for some of the tenants, they're needing the ceiling height. So that's one thing they consider quite a bit.
Ceiling and garage door. Yeah. So they've got, commercial vehicles, the Ford Transits, ladder racks. A lot of other places don't have the clearance that we have, so they can't pull their vehicles in or out. And then ceiling heights for storing, materials. It really maximizes the space, the whole footprint. You can store a lot more when you go vertical like that.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. Exactly what Jay said, because I get a lot of people coming out that are coming from the garage, and generally most garages do have 7-foot, 8-foot door, something smaller size. So when you tell them, hey, I got 20 by 30, they're like, oh, my garage is kind of that size. But then they come in, they see it, and they're like, oh, this is a lot bigger because I have all this height. So that definitely for sure. And then on top of that, like a lot of them that are coming from a self-storage, like the lighting, the electric inside, the climate control, just having the accessibility for that is really, great for them.
I would say, along with what Akeem had talked about, is that climate control. There's a lot of people aren't anticipating that the space will be able to be controlled temperature-wise because of that big, long space. And that's one thing that I always try and make sure to show them on one of those spaces, is that we are insulated all 5 sides, ceilings, walls, garage doors, and that the temperature is managed very well within those facilities. So if you want to have a place that is comfortable in the winter, you can have that even when it's 10 degrees out.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. No, that's great. And when you get kind of comparisons, right? You guys are talking to tenants and they're looking at one option versus another. What are some of the things that you would kind of highlight as, hey, if you are looking at a more traditional warehouse operation, that you'd highlight as, hey, these are some things to look out for a tenant? Because I think that's always the comparison game. And what are some of those hidden things that you may not be thinking about that maybe you are going to benefit at Rise? But what are those recommendations you may give folks to actually say, hey, when you're taking a look at a different kind of space, would you have this type of opportunity or that type of opportunity? What are some of those things that you'd highlight for them?
The common area maintenance fees, the gated facility, security, all that stuff. Like, I'll have people come in and say, so-and-so's got this place down the road. And then you're like, yeah, but, we have the gate, we have the security. And they're like, yeah, that's a good point. And then a lot of them don't think about the common area maintenance, like snow removal, landscaping, things like that. So that definitely plays into it.
Awesome.
Well, the big thing I stress is just the value of having a manager on site Monday through Friday. Is that going to be something that you're going to have where if you do have an issue with your unit, are you the one that's going to have to deal with that situation, or can you push that to the manager, and will that get done in a timely manner? And how much will that affect your business on having to deal with whatever situation that is not for you to make money? Because the ultimate goal is to run your business, not run the building.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are all great points. Are there certain things that, when they bring up a question to you or a challenge on the space or what they're thinking about, are there certain things that if you were going to kind of button up, here is the value that you can get out of a Rise location, what are some of the things that you would share in terms of that kind of value that they're going to receive on a site like Rise? I'll let everybody go on this one.
Well, I mean, we got a lot of amenities, everything from our conference room to kitchenette. I think the forklift in my mind stands out as something that is just invaluable to a lot of these tenants. They're getting deliveries, and it's a tool that they use all day long. So I think that's one that really stands out and kind of separates us.
I mean, just to touch on something Neil said earlier, just us being on site, I know there have been situations where, someone's got a delivery that driver came 4 hours early from when they were supposed to come, and like I'm able to sign for them. So that makes a huge difference. The forklift, another one, like Jay mentioned, just having the accessibility for that, get rid of those lift gate fees, things like that. They save a ton of money just on that alone.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the big amenities, access 24/7, secure, clean location, which a lot of times in some areas you're not going to be able to find that clean area where you can work safely and do what you need to do.
Yeah, one of the most common ones I see is that's overlooked is just simply the location. We've done the research to pick good locations, easily accessible. If someone's comparing us to someone or another facility that's even 5 miles away, that can be a 20-minute drive. And so that adds time and money. Neil mentioned being on site. We've got site managers. They can help out, kind of act as a liaison on deliveries and assist in a lot of ways there. Adds a lot of value. And it's probably the most common ones that I would say.
And you guys get a lot of walk-ins, right? And so these are people that, they could have called in, they could have scheduled something, but they just, I'm just going to drop by and check it out. What is kind of and maybe this is everybody's perspective on this one, but what's the most common, like, oh, wow, I had no idea, or the like aha moment when people will actually visit a Rise location? What is that aha moment for certain people?
Like a lot of our buildings look the same, but I don't think a lot of people realize that we own the whole property. So like I'll have people walk in, and like, they see our name on the awning, they'll come in and they're like, oh, you guys like own all this? And we're like, yeah, like all these are ours. These are all of our spaces. We lease each one individually. And that's like really kind of surprising to them. So that for sure, I would say.
Yeah.
I think it's the one-stop shop. Once we get into the full list of amenities, get what they're needing, and really lay it out for them and explain what's included, it's like, oh my gosh, you guys include a lot. There's no triple net, no cam fees, maintenance is a lot of that's covered. The ability to scale, the flexibility, like there's just so many things. It's the culmination of all that. That light bulb's like, oh my gosh, yeah, I didn't realize all that's included. This is a no-brainer. Kind of clicks for them.
That's great.
One thing that I see commonly is the variety of size of space. They don't realize that we can manage from a small 340 square foot space to all the way up to 1,800 square foot space. That's a thing, and getting into scaling up. So plenty of people starting a 300 range space, and I've seen them move all the way up to 1,200 square feet within a few years. So that's one of the things I think is the variety of sizes within those spaces that we have.
Definitely.
I think, in fact, it just happened the other day, just the cleanliness of our properties. I think we all take great pride in keeping the properties in tip-top shape. And they might not get that from somewhere else. In fact, I was on a tour the other day and they were just in awe of how clean and organized everything was, and little things like that can make the difference.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think there's definitely a level of pride, right? I think not only from you guys and all of our managers, but the business owners. If you're going to invest in your business and you're going to have your name on the door and have that space, that confidence in a clean facility, you could bring somebody on, you could bring a new employee on, you can bring a client on. And that definitely is something that I've heard time and time again when we talk to tenants of, this is my home now. And I feel that. And so that's a great insight as well. One thing I want to ask, kind of a fun one. What is the most unique business that you have at your site?
I have a guy that does hockey lessons with kids. Something that we weren't really sure if it would work at the site, just being...
To be clear, we don't have an ice rink in the unit.
No. He's got like the artificial kind of like to slot for the puck to slide, but like he built out like these great like big walls on the side to protect the walls from damage and all that stuff and to dampen the noise. And he's got like a little like goal back there and like some like targets for him to shoot at. But I mean, he's worked with like multiple professional hockey players.
Wow.
Was actually telling me a story about one of the girls on the U.S. Olympic team that just won a gold medal not too long ago. That was, I think, the backup goalie for the squad. But yeah, just some of the ideas that people come to you with, you're like, I don't know if that's going to work, but you just give them a chance, let them do it, and I mean, it's been great to work with them.
That's awesome.
I had a tenant that actually tested all kinds of tennis shoes and athletic shoes. He was currently doing it in his basement and ran out of space. So when he came to Rise, he converted his unit, put a basketball court in there, a tennis wall, so that he could play around with the shoes. But then he'd cut them apart and do all the testing. So I thought that was pretty unique.
And if you're on the channel and checking out our podcast, Foot Doctor Zach, we actually have an episode with him. So that's who Jay's talking about, and that was definitely a fun tenant for sure.
Mine vary all over the place. I've had a candle maker, coffee roaster, recycle frying oil. So there's just a wide variety. I call her the candle lady. She's standard wax. And has been a tenant there for a long time. Whenever I tour that around her space, I always tell those tenants that are prospecting in there that the smells are free.
That's great.
There's no cost on those.
It's like walking in the subway, right? Yeah.
It's always good.
That's great.
We've had some unique businesses over the years.
Yeah.
So to pinpoint it would be a little challenging, but
Well, I guess the unique thing for you've got salons.
the salons is definitely a more unique one. Grew in popularity, especially during COVID. Some cities were shut down, different regulations. That took off really well. Whether it's nail tech, esthetician, cosmetologist, I think I've learned a lot about the whole salon industry.
Sure.
So that's probably been one of the more unique spaces that we have.
That's awesome.
They've done really well.
And overall, I think something that I have experienced is that tenants begin to kind of create their own little community of business owners. And we've heard that feedback on some of our other interviews. What have y'all heard from tenants about that sense of community? And is that a surprising thing, when people come on site that they're not expecting? And how do they embrace that overall?
I actually have a recent story of one. We got a tenant in from the Chamber of Commerce that we're a member of in Lewis Center, over in that area. And she recently moved in and had an inspection coming up for her new food truck that she's opening. And she did not have the electrical outlet in her space to charge her vehicle, which she needed for the inspection. And our Zuman Grumman, who's a tenant at Lewis Center, offered to allow them to use their charger that they had installed in there so she could, get passed on her inspection. So just like having those people that you can reach out to and kind of rely on to help you out, it's definitely great and beneficial to the tenants. And I mean, I see it all the time. People going to like some of the woodworkers we have for special projects, or roofers will get busy and they'll be like, hey, like we have this person that's reaching out to us. Do y'all have any availability? And kind of just passing along work that way. So you see it pretty frequently.
That's awesome.
One thing that comes to mind is the salons. Again, a lot of them are cosmetologists. They're doing hair. And, we've got 13 suites that are all individual business owners, all in one pretty concentrated space, even though they're individual spaces, but in a smaller area. And you would think they would compete and has some drama and conflict, but they will really work well together. Some specialize, in perms or a certain type of hair, or if they're out on maternity leave or sick, they'll pass off clients. And so they really network organically. And while you would think they would compete, they've created a whole community.
That's great.
And they're one of our best little communities within the Rise umbrella that work really well.
That's awesome.
I think you see a lot of times, especially with us, allowing them to advertise on their door, their business name. A lot of people networking with their neighbors across the properties, trading business ideas and even working along with each other. So it is a great community. I got a call the other day. one of our tenants said, "This guy's garage door has been open for 5 hours. I haven't seen him since this morning." I went ahead and shut the garage door. So that's the kind of tight knit community that we see and that we love seeing.
That's awesome. Any others on your end, Neil?
No, I was going to sort of relay sort of the same thing that Jay was talking about, is just tenants looking after each other.
Yeah.
That's something that I've seen definitely happen, whether it's something as silly as someone left their lights on in their truck or that kind of stuff, where I get a phone call saying, "Hey, this guy's light's been on, or the garage door's been open. There's this package sitting out on front." So the tenants are in there, they know who their neighbor is, and they look out for each other because they all want the same thing.
No, that's wonderful. And I think it's so true, because we are only leasing to businesses. And so when you have that kind of business community, it just builds that trust. And, they don't want their garage door open, you don't want yours open, so they'll take care of each other. And I've heard those stories time and time again. And so just watching out for each other and learning from each other. And I think you made a great point as well on sharing business. We have so many trades on site, so many different types of trades working on a project. We'll also hear that from referrals. "Oh yeah, I've got a guy that we're working on a project down the street and they needed space." And so when they can work and, operate in the same arena, there's so much, sharing of business, sharing of ideas, and that just promotes growth across the board. So I love those stories. Those are wonderful. What is your highest number of tenants in a specific maybe industry or lane? Because I know it can vary site to site, but what are you seeing? Jay, maybe we'll start with you on your end of what are the most common industries that you're seeing?
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of e-commerce type tenants.
Right.
I think our spaces fit perfectly for them. They're the right sizes, but also for them receiving their products and having the big semis come in and having all those shipments come in and out at the same time. I feel like might be my biggest percentage of tenants is an e-commerce type.
Got it.
I have like 5 or 6 roofers on my site, so that's why I brought it up on the last question. But like, roofers is a big one. Jay mentioned e-commerce. I have a lot of e-commerce businesses. At one point in time, I think I had like 4 photographers within the facility as well. So
that's great.
Mine's spread out and is really random, from construction trades to handy people to what I think I have a lot of right now are companies that use the warehouse space or flex space as a satellite site. So that their main corporation may be in Cleveland or Columbus, but they have a branch that is in the Toledo area that they'll ship their parts to. The technicians will come, pick up their parts, and then spread out of Northwest Ohio all over, so that they use that as their satellite site and their meeting spot for their technicians, so that they can disperse throughout Northwest Ohio, because we're close to the interstate and it's easy access to get on and off, go north, go south, go east or west.
Perfect.
Yeah, I'd say, along with e-commerce, pallet liquidation. So they're, resellers. Some of it's online, but some of it's in person. Between that, restoration companies and plumbers, I would say, are my top 3 that honestly probably make up 15% of our tenants, just with those three industries.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, and that's quite the gamut. And, I love, everybody has a good amount of e-commerce. The interesting thing is e-commerce can be broken down so much smaller into different layers. So when you guys are thinking about that, what are the different types of e-commerce companies that you're seeing? Are these individuals? Are these actual operations? Wholesale distribution? What are you guys seeing? If anyone wants to take that one on e-commerce variations that you see on site.
Well, one person that I have is Brylamar. He designs his own. Right now, it's women's purses that he has designed and has pre-sold a bunch of those, and he has a pretty large space. He was an upgrader. he started in a 340 and now he's up to a 1200 because of the amount of orders that he's getting for his custom design purses. And he's got plans to add more things to his designer line that he's specifically doing for himself. And he's being successful in what he's doing. So it's awesome.
That is great. Another podcast guest. So you can check that one out. Yeah.
I mean, I see a good mix of both, but I would say most of them are individuals selling. So I got a good bit that just do eBay, Facebook Marketplace, but then I do have bigger ones like disc golf deals that are doing, the disc golf discs and accessories. So they have a pretty big team. But yeah, most of them at my site at least are individuals.
Got it.
A lot of mine have been wholesalers, a lot of local pickups, or, they're selling to a local clientele, but then they're shipping them out, whether it's small appliances, maybe a little bit larger appliances, flooring, any of that kind of industry where it's home improvement. They found alternative options that are a little bit more cost effective. Those are probably the most, they're selling online, local pickup.
Yep.
Those are definitely the most popular for the Greenwood area right now.
Last mile distribution and everything around that. So that checks out. And I'm curious, we'll shift gears a little bit because I think we've hit on kind of the different types and the community that's being built. If there was a question that you wish a tenant would ask on a tour, so maybe they're not asking this, or the tenant kind of knows what they are looking for if they are asking this, what's one question that you would hope they would be asking on a tour?
Probably more so not like what things are, but how they work. So like just the process of, okay, if I have an issue, like what can I expect? Rather than like, where do I go if I have an issue?
Sure.
So kind of digging deeper into it a little bit, which I try to do my best to be like upfront about how that process works, because I know everyone that works in any industry, they have their days off. They're going to want to have some kind of work-life balance. But being that we're the only manager on site, there are times that we have to do things after hours or on a weekend if it's an emergency. So kind of like just knowing the expectation of like, hey, it's a Saturday, I'm locked out. Like, what's my process if I do have to get in my unit and you're not available? Things such as that. So just kind of delving into questions that are related to like processes when it comes to those types of situations.
Sure. And they may have expectations from other places where they're like, wow, that's it. That's impressive, right? It could be both sides of it. So that's great. Any other questions that would be good to get from somebody, or that you like to hear because you're like, all right, I know where we're going?
I think just sometimes the overall size or dimensions of the unit, they think they know the right size and they don't measure.
Yeah.
And so they start to move in and they need to fit a trailer within a unit, and it's, a foot too small or something similar. And they knew the overall size, but forgot to check the length or width, which thankfully we have the flexibility to scale and transfer so we can pivot pretty easy. But some of those details, or the garage door height.
Right.
Hey, what's the garage door height? Oh, I didn't even think of that. And I'm going to be just too short or too tall or whatever. And just the fine details, maybe electrical in the units. Hey, is this 220, or what's the voltage or amps? I thought this was a dedicated outlet. I'm wanting to do this. Stuff they don't typically think about. We normally would go over that, but we're having to answer questions that aren't being asked, which is good. But those are a couple that come to mind.
No, that's perfect. Yeah, I think that space, in your head when you're kind of doing I think this will work. Maybe measure that a little bit more and know where you're coming from. Because I think that's the other part, right? You're in your basement, you're in your garage. How much stuff do I really have can be a big challenge. Or I'm in 3 or 4 self-storage units and I got to bring it all together. How do I make sure that it's all going to fit, or what's the right size? So I think those are really good pieces. These are a couple questions that we hear. So I'm going to do some rapid fire. So I'll just ask each of you one question to see where we go. What businesses are not a good fit for Rise?
Yeah, we typically steer clear of automotive work or any sort of work with welders, open flame type stuff, or even hazmat stuff, maybe on a case by case. But the automotive work just really doesn't fit with us. We don't have oil separators or floor drains like that. So that's basically one industry that we steer clear of.
That makes sense. Makes sense. Akeem, can I modify the space?
Depends what you want to do to it, but
Enlighten us.
absolutely, we're flexible on the needs of each individual. So if you need additional electric, something simple like that, we get you connected with an electrician, get you some quoted prices, and allow you to do so. But like there are some things that kind of don't make sense. Like Jay mentioned, we don't really allow welders, and it's because we don't have sprinkler systems, and just the cost of doing that wouldn't make sense for someone moving into one of our spaces. So that's one of the reasons that we like steer clear of it.
Makes sense. Neil, what are the rules around signage and or overnight stays?
With signage, we allow magnets on the metal doors. We prefer not to have stickers on there because they leave marks, and then it will require the doors to get repainted and that kind of stuff. Overnight stays are not allowed for tenants. This is not some place to live in. Not only just because it's a warehouse space, but there's zoning restrictions and that kind of stuff that's also affiliated with the towns that we're in.
Absolutely. How about overnight stays for parking and or vehicles? What we look at there?
You're allowed to park your vehicle inside your unit. Outside, we do not allow outside parking outside the gate overnight. If it's inside the gate, we do have dedicated parking available for tenants to lease, purchase with their warehouse space.
So people know parking and equipment behind the gate secure.
Yep.
Thumbs up. Okay, perfect. Let's say, Avery, we damage something in the unit. How is that handled, and what can the tenant expect in terms of getting those things fixed?
We get it fixed quickly. We have a really good vendor list that we work with. So we've done a lot of work on the back end to make sure that we have good contractors, plumbers, whether it's GC, sheet metal, all the trades, electrical, where we can have repairs, really any damages repaired quickly. We've got cameras, so we're able to catch a lot. I found a lot of the times the owners of the company don't know that their employee damaged something. And so by us being on site and paying attention to those details, we can catch it quickly, address it, and get it corrected. So if they've got clients coming, it doesn't look terrible because their door's half off. We're able to correct the issue quickly.
And let's talk a little bit, dive in with you a little bit further, Avery. So if we have, if there's something that happens to the building that is not the tenant's fault, how does that process work versus if something was damaged maybe by an employee, and what's the responsibility of the tenant there?
Yeah, well, back to the cameras. So we've got really good camera system. We're able to investigate, so we can see whether, maybe a delivery company carrier was on site making a delivery, accidentally backed into their garage door. Those little details, like having as many cameras as we do, they go a long way. Because normally, if we wouldn't know who was liable, the tenant would be if it was their unit, and we're able to catch that and with pretty high accuracy and bill the appropriate party, which is nice. Saves the tenant money at another facility. Like, sorry, it's your building. It got hit. I don't care who did it. It needs fixed, and we're able to pinpoint that. And then damages, if we did it, we would own it. We'd fix it. We'd let the tenant know, get it corrected quickly. I think some companies may shy away or just act like it didn't happen. It's like, no, we have pride in it. It's our product. It's our buildings, and own it, and then fix it and move on. Communicate throughout the whole process.
That's great. And Jay, I'll come back to you. So Avery mentioned the cameras and everything. How important is security to tenants, and what are some of the key security, amenities that Rise is offering to give tenants that confidence?
Yeah, it's super important. I've seen a lot of tenants come to us because of security reasons at their previous site. So it's utmost on their list. But our front gate, and then like Avery said, we've got cameras everywhere. We've got eyeballs on every unit on the property. But not only that, they could also install an in-unit camera. So if if the owner's not on site quite all the time, they can monitor their employees, their inventory, through the phone app, and check in on their stuff and have peace of mind.
That's great. That makes life a lot easier if you don't have to be on site, because you might be out working in the field, right? So that's great. Let's talk a little bit about a really fun topic: trash. How do we handle trash, and what can tenants expect on the trash front?
So tenants, they have a couple of different options. Some of the restoration companies, we lease parking spaces to, so they can drop their own dumpster if they're getting a lot of stuff, or they're getting like really bulky items that they have to get rid of. But we do include a basic trash where you get, one like 35-gallon bag of trash that you can dispose of weekly. So that's already built into the cost of your lease within Rise. We do have upgraded options as well for tenants. If they're getting like a bunch of pallets, or they're getting more than that one bag of trash, then they could pay, an upgraded rate to have more usage of that, or to dispose of those pallets.
And elsewhere, would all of that be on the tenant if they were leasing anywhere else?
Yeah. Typically, other places are charging you like dumpster fees, which, you can get into that at Rise if it's needed. Most people are fine with the basic trash because they're not generating that much. But at least we do keep the option open for those that do need that as a part of their business.
Yeah, just to sort of relay that same stuff, I just had a new tenant that signed that's going to be moving in the next month, that was having to pay for his dumpster service, and he was getting the overages fees from outsiders sticking trash in his dumpster as well. And with our dumpsters being behind the gate, the likelihood of that happening is very low.
I think it goes back to one of the questions earlier, is what tenants during a tour forget to ask, or prospects. And that's one of them. They get that excited, they see the space, they're envisioning, oh, I could put this here or this here. And they just forget about the trash. And so it's us educating them, like, yeah, that's included. Here's what that would be. And they're like, oh yeah, I didn't even think of that. Another spot, I would have to write my own dumpster, set that up, sign a long contract. People are going to use it and abuse it, and they're getting billed for it. So that's one of those questions people forget, and having it included, just a killer amenity.
Yeah, no, that's great. Well, while we're on amenities, I think we mentioned you have the security. We just talked about trash. Jay, what's another amenity that tenants find really helpful when they're moving in?
The conference room.
Okay.
It gets used quite a bit. I think it's great for them, especially if you just have a standalone warehouse. You might have a new hire, or even want to entertain a client, and you don't want to do it in your warehouse space, which would be fine too, with the cleanliness and everything. But we do have that professional conference room up front, and I think it gives them peace of mind that, hey, I could operate out of here, with no problem.
No, that's perfect. Akeem, you got an amenity that tenants really like?
The mobile app access through the entrance gate is a big one. Like tenants will sometimes, like you said, be on a job site, and they'll have like a contractor for something else coming to pick something up for them, or like a buddy of theirs coming to grab something, and they can just open the gate remotely for that person as just through the app. So that makes it super easy for them to get people in if needed.
Perfect.
Well, something just as crazy as probably is the same, like what Avery said on the questions you didn't ask, is the on-site bathroom on the facility.
Sure.
Because a lot of places do not have a restroom accessibility on the outside of their facility. You'd have to drive off-site to go to the bathroom, and with our sites, we have tenant available access to a bathroom with their units. Those being on site is key. And I think that's one thing that doesn't get asked a lot, but it's one thing that I definitely point out and people take advantage of.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's talk a little bit about we mentioned the common area maintenance as kind of a question that people may not ask or want to ask. When we think about that at Rise, we'll stick with Akeem. What's the approach that we take at Rise if there's a leak in the roof, if a PTAC goes out? How do we approach that, and what's the tenant responsible for, and what's Rise responsible for?
It depends on the situation. Like Avery mentioned before, like if it's something that's on us, like we take care of it. So if there is a roof leak, it's probably not the tenant's fault.
Yeah.
So we'll get up there and see what we can do. If we got to call someone, we call someone. But a lot of the times we're handling that situation regardless. I mean, there will be times that tenants will handle things on their own. Like if they see a spider in their unit, they'll just go out, and you're like, oh, they set out some spider traps. But I mean, even stuff like that, like I know ants were pretty bad this year, just with all the rain that we got pre-summer. So I went around and I sprayed some home defense in a couple of units, and even simple things like that. Sometimes we'll just do it themselves. But I'm like, hey, like I got spray. I can hit that for
I'm
you.
here to help. Yeah. No, that's great. So all of those things that you may pay for elsewhere, Rise is going to take care of, and you can just focus on your business. And I think that's kind of an underlying theme that we hear all the time. So that's really keys to success. Now, I want to kind of wrap up with general feedback from tenants. So is there a tenant story or something you hear from tenants, folks that have either been with you for a while or just moved in, on how they see Rise or what Rise has done for them? I think that's a question that a lot of people are asking is this space going to help me grow? Is this space going to be a place that I can work out of and be happy? So what are some of the feedback that you hear, or even a story from a single tenant that's like kind of blew your mind or said, wow, I'm glad that I was a part of that? Are there some stories from each of you that make sense?
I've got one. It was a tenant called Albatross Plumbing. And I guess I really didn't realize their story until I watched a former podcast with them, that they, during COVID, lost their jobs and started this plumbing business, two friends. And they really were kind of hitting the ground running, really didn't know what they were doing. And they said that Rise really gave them their first opportunity on a space. So they started in a 600 square foot unit and grew from there. And now they're actually in their standalone facility that they built. So hearing stories like that, and, coming from, something small and actually watching these people grow, it's really cool to see.
That's awesome.
I think a lot of it's reflected in the reviews we get as well. Like just our Google reviews, seeing how people appreciate that we as managers really care about what we're doing. Like just last week, I had a tenant employee whose car wouldn't start, and I have a little jump pack at my site, and I was like, hey, we can get that jumped for you. And it's she, after I did that, she went and left me a 5-star review and said, hey, Akeem's awesome. He's around here helping people out, super fast to respond, and he even jumped my car for me. So I was like just put in that extra little effort to be there and help guide people, even if it isn't business related. It goes the extra mile.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's probably what I would hear most, is just the thank yous for doing something that there wasn't an expectation for.
Mm-hmm.
Just trying to look out for them, whether it's doing something as simple as putting a package into their unit, delivering their mail. They get some piece of mail that looks important, saying, hey, this looks important. You may want to come pick this up sooner rather than later, that kind of stuff like that. Yeah. I think tenants are really appreciative about.
Yeah, one that comes to mind is I had a tenant starting 900 square feet with us and grew to 9,000 square feet, and eventually, built their own facility. But we still stay in contact even after they moved out. And they had packages shipped, that were returned to Rise instead of the new facility. And the fact that I reached out to them, said, hey, you had this here. Most places wouldn't do that. They'd return it or throw it away or it'd disappear. But having that connection still, where we built that relationship over years of, them scaling up and just being on site, I think went a long way for them. And it he was appreciative for sure.
That's great. Well, it sounds like you guys are awesome. I mean, I feel that way, and really appreciate you guys giving insight into what people can expect, what they should be looking out for. It's such a big step for businesses to say, I'm ready to take this on. I'm ready to move into my space. I'm going to grow my business. And having you guys out there to help guide them and share that information is so important to our business. But I know from talking with tenants, it's so important to theirs as well. So first and foremost, thank you all for not only joining, but doing what you do. We are at our annual managers meeting, so we are all going to go celebrate some awards. But thank you guys for joining the show. And until next time, welcome to the Build Boldly podcast.